Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my new friend, Dr. Asha Rani. Say hi.
Hi.
We had us a good little chat before we started recording, and I'm admiring the background, and we're getting all sassy and friendly. And so, yes, but you guys may have noticed that I said doctor. We talked about that a lot too. Tell us, doctor, what do you do?
I had this discussion one time with somebody that if you have to introduce yourself, what would it be like if you introduced yourself without saying what your profession is?
Mm-hmm.
So when people say, "Who are you?" I never say, "My name is Dr. Asha Rani."
Mm-hmm.
It's what I do. It's not who I am.
I love
So
that distinction.
what I do is during my day to earn income, I'm a dentist.
Mm-hmm.
But my joy within my field is connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a practicing periodontist in New York City. Besides my profession, there are other things that I enjoy doing. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I enjoy writing. I just published a book. I just got on a stage at a speak event. So I'm beginning a public speaking, I don't know if you want to call it a career, but a joy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think what I realized is there is more than one thing that we are supposed to be doing in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to bottleneck ourselves into one profession. So that's where I've been learning this past probably year or two since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Bring your joy into everything you do, and you don't know where that will lead.
Awesome. I love that so much. And the dentist office isn't one place that I think people would normally associate with joy, right? So many people associate that with fear or nerves. I've never really been a nervous dentist office goer, but I know that there are a lot of people who that is like their worst fear. So I imagine that having a joyful dentist is awesome for them.
Well, what I will say is, so I've been a dentist for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Probably about 5 years ago, I was running into a situation where I kind of felt burnt, like there's burnout because it's so, and that could happen really in any profession. You're doing the same thing every day and it becomes monotonous and becomes routine and becomes a habit. And then you kind of lose the spark. So, and now when you're in the field of dentistry, where even people don't have to know anything about you, just the name dentist, just walking into a dental office already triggers anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So, prior to COVID, I was like, maybe there's something else I want to do. And then here comes COVID. Yeah. And then everything gets shut down. Dentistry is the last place anyone wants to go. Mm-hmm. And that's when I really had to dig deep and say, oh my God, I think I might not have a career anymore.
Oh.
But in that pause, I just started doing things that I enjoyed. I enjoyed dancing.
Mm-hmm.
And when dentistry opened back up and work wasn't very busy because patients were coming in, but not as much as before, on our downtime, we just started doing dance videos at work. And
nice.
one thing led to another. And I started doing dance videos with the patients that were coming in. And I said, hey, you want to dance? Let's dance 30 seconds freestyle. And we would record it and I would post it on my Instagram and it just took off. So there was a new joy that, I found in my work for myself. Mm-hmm. And patients found like, wow, I just went to the dental office. Like, I just felt like, I don't know where I went because that's the last thing we did, 30 seconds of dancing before they left the office. And they totally forgot about the dental appointment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so great on so many levels, not least of which is, and it's so funny to me how often these things are like synchronous. But the last person that I recorded with, we talked about kind of this professional expectation, especially in medicine and other more like strictly controlled and regulated, lots of credentials and study. I imagine that there are a lot of folks that come up to you and be like, dentists should be more professional. Nah.
Because the practice that I work in Manhattan, there are other dentists who are there. But the patients in my room are always laughing. And the patients in my room are dancing, and there's life. And so as they're walking through, the other patients are like, what's going on in that room over there? And you know what? It may not appear professional to some people, but for the patients who are in my chair, they're very happy to be there. And I'm very happy to be there too. So when you can find common ground in healthcare, that's a win-win.
Right. And I would argue that professionalism is not the thing here. Have you helped somebody solve their problem? Have you given them a bright spot in their day? Like, we were joking about that earlier, too, because I'm like, yes, I'm going to be in a hoodie. I'm going to swear a lot. We'll probably wind up at a theme park drunk at some point, and I can still help you make $1 million in your business. Like, do you think I'm unprofessional now just because I said fuck and we went to Disney? I don't care. We're going to be over here having fun. And the same thing at this, like the most important thing in dental health is so important and so almost like criminally underrated. And then add to that like the insurance problem. I know I don't need to tell you anything about this, but like it's hard enough to get people in the office to get their teeth looked at. But if you're giving them a reason to go and have fun, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And what I do is I do surgery. So that even is a situation where nobody wants to get surgery.
Yes.
But there is a disconnect in healthcare between doctors and patients. Patients feel like they're not heard, they're not seen. There's no pause. It's like a rat race, a hamster wheel. And everybody needs to slow down a little bit, and everybody needs to be present and be mindful and understand that there's a human being who's there. It's not a dollar amount. It's a patient. Bedside manner means something.
Yes.
Your expertise is important, but bedside manner means something.
I love that distinction. I think that we could use that everywhere in business a little bit, because I know I see this. So I come from a marketing background. And there's kind of a weird thing that happens in my industry where folks in the early stages, they have a couple early wins and they get real cocky. And then they start going, but shouldn't the business owners be listening to me? After all, I am the expert and they're coming to me for marketing help because they don't know how to do it. And I'm like, okay, so we got to stop and dismantle and examine that a little bit. First of all, yay you. Congrats for getting some wins. Congrats for getting some confidence up. I know that that's a battle in and of itself. Let's dial it back a little bit. Let's recognize that clients aren't dumb, especially if they've built a business that they can afford to pay to bring you in. Like, they're doing something right. So that deserves some respect too. Like, let's stop this whole like expertise needs to be respected. It does. And we can still be kind, appreciative, respectful human beings, regardless of the level of expertise in the room. That's just me.
I think there is part of it is we're going through a shift where there's an old school way of presenting yourself in a quote professional environment. But there's been a dramatic shift that's been happening where we can still do the same thing, and you don't have to put yourself up on a pedestal. And that allows for a greater connection. So in so many ways, in every job that there is, we need to let go of the molds that people feel like we need to, fit into.
Yeah.
And break out of the box, because once we break out of the box, oh my God, it's limitless.
Oh yeah. And I think that's a healthy approach all around too, because I know that I've talked myself and several other people off the ledge that, like, when a layoff happens, when there's a business downturn, when you lose a client or something like that, in the old paradigm, in that mold, in that respect my expertise, your identity, your worth is deeply tied to what you do, exactly like you said at the beginning. And I've been on this bandwagon. It's only been a short amount of time because I'm still like divorcing myself from Silicon Valley hustle and grind culture, right? But your work is not your worth. Right. Who you are is not what you do. And it's totally okay to like leave that behind invent your own method of doing it, not fit into anybody else's box, and still have a gleefully joyous, rambunctious hell of a time helping people your own
Right.
damn way. I love it.
Right. And I think for me personally, how I was raised and my background has really changed my perspective and how I interact with people. My parents came from India, so
Mhm.
I was born and raised here by Indian immigrant parents. Raised in the projects. I don't know if you know what that is. That's lower income
Mhm.
housing in New York City. So that whole environment teaches you something about worth and self-worth and
Mhm.
where you feel you stand. When you're raised in that environment, you kind of think as a child, I'm less than, because
Mhm.
as you start to grow up and you look around, you're like, oh, I don't have the same things that those guys do, and oh, my building looks like that. So you start to see the world differently.
Yeah.
And then as I, was going to school and, we're, trying to get an education. And now all of a sudden I have this doctor title,
Mhm.
and people have no idea of my background. Um, I treat patients in the Bronx, and those
Mhm.
patients, many of them don't speak English very well. They don't have a lot of money. And I also treat patients in a high-end practice in Manhattan. So I have
Mhm.
both people from different economic backgrounds who are getting access to the same level of healthcare, which is me treating them as a doctor. And for me, that has been such a gift, because growing up how I did, I wanted everyone to feel like you are worthy no matter where you were born and raised.
Mhm.
You have the right to every type of treatment that the next person does.
Amen.
So because of that, I use my childhood upbringing as a gift. Although at that time it didn't feel like much of a gift.
Yes, I totally
Um,
understand that too.
you know, um, so for me, that is where I'm able to bring in a different part of myself to what I do.
I love that. Of course, it takes time and perspective to get to that gift
Yeah.
that we get in the midst of challenge. And I didn't grow up in the projects, but I did grow up in a trailer park. So I have a
Oh,
little bit of the same
right.
sense of like growing up around wealthier folks when you are a poorer kid. I remember once, I think I only talked about this once on the show before, but I think I was 17 at the time, and one of my aunts had nominated my single working mom with 3 kids, and I was the eldest, for like one of those Christmas families that's in need, a needy family. And I remember being so excited because I'm a kid, right? Somebody showed
Right.
up with and they did junk food for kids. They didn't just show up with like, hey, broccoli, eat your veggies, kids. They probably could have, but it was like Oreos and
Right.
goldfish and food and snacks and presents and stuff. And they had done presents for our age, like age appropriate
Mm,
presents. Not treating a 17-year-old like a kid was very important to a 17-year-old girl.
right.
And I remember that very conflicted feeling of, I'm happy. Look at all this stuff that just showed up. My mom is not. And there are a lot of strong feelings around like, wow, and there's a lot of like cultural things there too. I've mentioned several times before, I'm from the South, and there's already like weird cultural things about, I can do it my damn self. I don't need any help.
Right.
So but I always remember that very powerfully, because that's something that I want to be able to do for others, to help them out of that bad spot, because I know very deeply what it's like to be there. It's kind of a random tangent, but totally get
Right. Who we are now is because of everything that's already, that has happened for us.
Yes.
Um, and when you are able to look at it eventually as with a new perspective, it's like you're like changing your past, because now
Mm-hmm.
you look at it with a whole new set of eyes and you understand why that happened, because now you're bringing that part, you're the best part of all of that into everything you do. Um, so I understand now why I'm in healthcare, why I want to help people. It's greater than working in their mouth. And that goes, I'm sure, with many people in everything that they do. There is something else that brings you in, and sometimes we're not aware of what that is until
Mm-hmm.
later.
Oh yeah. I think the mission is really important. And that a lot of times when we're struggling as entrepreneurs, it's because we've shifted into a me-centric mode versus a mission-centric mode. And, when I talk about missions in business, I'm not necessarily talking about being an Elon Musk or, one of those guys that's, we're going to pioneer space. Your mission doesn't have to be that big. It could be helping this specific group of people in my very small local town. It could be helping all female entrepreneurs. Like, pick your flavor, pick your size, pick your location. It's all up to you. You don't have to be a world changer necessarily in order to change some worlds, though.
Right.
Perspective.
Right. Right. And then, a lot of times before we start helping people, we have to help ourselves. Personal wellness, I think, is big. And I think 5 years ago when I felt like I was in a rut in terms of not having a spark, that was bigger than just my job. That was, I think, just in every part of my life when other things aren't really jiving. And you can't really point your finger at what is it that's not working. Everything just feels like it's not working. So personal wellness, mental health is huge. And I had to really take a pause and finally put myself as a priority. I'm a mother of 3 kids. And I had to really say, everybody hold up for a second. Like, let me see me, let me feel me, let me do me. And I think that is what has allowed me to bring joy into things that I do. But if I didn't take that pause, because the rat race of life that everybody is on, you stay in a cycle and you think this is life. And your awareness of what the possibilities are is not even there, because you think that whatever it is you're doing is it.
Yes.
And I knew that whatever I was doing was not it. And there was a discomfort in that. I'm like, if this is not it, then what do I do? Because this is a problem.
Yeah, I love that. And I've spoken to folks before about what I call alternate realities and how they're happening all around us, because literally I can't see what's happening in your life and you can't see what's happening in mine. So that fact that there are so many people around us living different iterations of a life, we're ignorant to so many possibilities just by how, like, our brain can't process that much information. So if you don't know anybody that's doing anything differently, your worldview gets very limited to, well, these are the only possibilities, and I guess I'm picking the best one. Why do I still feel like crap? Probably because there's an option out there that you haven't seen yet. And I won't pretend to have the answers as to how you go about, cultivating that awareness and finding other realities. But I love that you said the fact that, like, it got so uncomfortable and I knew that there had to be something else. Like, discomfort, resistance, high levels of stress, I have started to understand are all signals. My brain, my body, my soul, whatever you want to call it, is telling me something needs to change. There's something to pay attention to here. Stop resisting me, for the love of God, or I'm going to start shutting down organs.
Right. But it takes an awareness, and it takes, when you follow your intuition and you know that something is not feeling right, but when you ignore it and then you keep doing what you're doing, eventually it's like, how many more red flags do you need before you hit rock bottom?
Right.
I ignored a lot of red flags and I just kept going along because I looked around me and everybody was doing the same thing. So who am I to complain? It's like being ungrateful. I have a beautiful home, a family, all of that. And when something inside was, eventually I was like, okay, pause, done. And I hope that people give themselves that. Life's too short. Life is too short to think that you just have to keep doing, and you're not feeling through life and you're not present.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard that described as finding the balance between being and doing, which, especially in capitalist society, we have this pressure to just do, achieve more. And, again, that worth is tied to the work. But if we can find ways to, exactly like you are reconnecting with your body, your joy, your spirit, you're reconnecting with people, that's being absolutely 100% present. And I love that you also brought up, who am I to complain? And I have a love-hate relationship with that because, first of all, yes, very brave thing to admit, especially in this day and age where people are quick to jump on the, well, I'm more miserable than that. What do you have to complain about? Look, we all have problems and your problems are valid. And you don't get to outvalid me just because you've got different problems. That doesn't mean I am saying that yours don't exist. That doesn't mean that I'm saying mine are worse, or that like you have no right to suffer, or like anything like that. But on that note, suffering is also a choice. Like pain is going to happen, but suffering is something that we choose to do, whether consciously or unconsciously. I think that ties closely to something else that you said about making yourself number one, which is something I think a lot of, especially women and mothers in entrepreneurship, struggle with too. And to that, I say you don't have enough. Like, there's no reason why you should not fit into your own damn life.
Right.
It's your life. You're the leading lady. You're the hero. This is your life. Why is it being lived for you? And you just come in as an afterthought. That frustrates me so much.
Yeah, I think we also have to recognize, if we're talking about women in general, there are patterns and societal norms that we follow. We're raised a certain way. We've watched our moms, our grandmothers live life a certain way. So even if they don't say anything, we learn by just watching them.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line, even though we think we're doing things different, we tend to then just kind of go back into that pattern. So breaking those patterns for me was huge. Breaking ancestral stories was huge. And getting to the point where, yes, I have 3 children, and yes, I have a career, and yes, there's all these other things that I have to do. I do have the right to live the life that I want. And
absolutely,
the fear of judgment, I think for many people holds them back in so many things in life. And that held me back. I decided, and for me, this was the decision that was many years in the making, that it was time for me to step away from a 25-year relationship. That was probably the most difficult decision that I've ever had to make, because that was really breaking every rule of quote, what a successful life is supposed to be,
right?
And
you got to have it all as a woman.
Right. And there was no big story except for the fact that I felt like our partnership had come, to a close. 2 people can grow together and then outgrow each other. And we're allowed to say, hey, I love you as a friend. But maybe it's time for us to go in a different direction. And 25 years is not what should keep you in something.
Yes.
It's never too late to make a change, no matter what it is. And I decided to make a change.
I'm glad you said that. It's never too late to make a change. And, in economics and business, we talk about sunk cost, which is exactly what you said. 25 years is not a reason to stay. Just whatever you have committed to something is not a reason to stick it out. If you have, stepped back and looked and examined your own thoughts and your own motivation, your own feelings and your own goals, and you've decided this is no longer serving me. And that in and of itself is a really hard choice, because most of us never want to admit something like that to ourselves. But yeah, congrats
Thank
on
you.
admitting that for yourself and breaking those norms. I haven't broken up with a partner. I was broken up with before I started moving, but I am somebody who is middle-aged, I guess you could say, and has chosen not to have children. And so I get kind of a different kind of pressure. When are you going to settle down? When are you going to bring new life into the world? Don't you want to have it all? And I'm like, I'm child enough for all of us. Like, there really does not need to be enough, like a mini me in the world. No.
There should be no rule. Like, get rid of the rules. There should be no rule about what your successful life looks like. You get to connect your own dots. And I hope we get to the point where everybody just is aware that somebody else's journey is their journey. It has nothing to do with you.
Exactly. Oh, yes. It has nothing to do with you. Does it impact your life at all? Most of the time, somebody else's decision will not impact you whatsoever. So just let it go, like the Disney song.
But what I will say is that if it does impact you and it triggers you, then reflect on what you're being triggered on. Because there's something there that needs to be looked at. Because if somebody's making a personal decision for their life and it is bothering you, there's something there that you might need to work on.
Yes.
So it's a growing process for everybody.
It absolutely is. And that's why I find it interesting that so many folks who are drawn to entrepreneurship, to having their own business in whatever form, also seem to be some of the biggest like self-improvement, self-development junkies I have ever met. Everybody has always got a therapist, a podcast, a book, something that you need to check out. Oh my God, this really helped me with this story that I had. So it was funny earlier that you talked about a little bit about money. And I wrote down this idea that I had because I recently uncovered a story that I had that I was not aware was there. And it was tied to what we talked about growing up poor. I was afraid of success because I was afraid that the people that I love the most, the folks that I grew up very poor around, were going to change and assume that I had gotten too big for my britches. Or if I become wealthy and I change the paradigm, we're somehow going to sever ties. They're not going to like me as a person anymore. I'm going to lose everyone that I love if I dare step out of this box that I have, helped put myself in from societal pressure. And so uncovering that was a real eye opener because I was like, oh, okay. Now I feel like I am prepared for this eventuality because building wealth is going to happen. It's already in process. It's well down the road. Yay us for breaking generational patterns, right?
Right.
And whatever somebody's reaction is to me achieving that, and again, exactly like you said, it has nothing to do with them. They're not even involved in that process except for being part of my life. If that's triggering them, I feel much better prepared to be like, well, I hear you, and it sounds like those are really strong feelings. And I'm also kind of like curious, how does me doing this mean that for you? Can we talk about that? Because I love you and I want to hear you out. And also this bothers me.
Right. And that requires a very mature conversation, which some people are able to have and some people are not.
Yes.
And I compare it to, it's like a dance. It takes two people to do a dance. If one person changes the steps of the dance, it will force the other person to change the steps too, and they may not be ready. But
yes.
them not being ready doesn't mean you stop dancing.
Yes.
And
that's such a perfect analogy.
And so that's where you decide, do you need a new partner or do we want to work together? And I realized in my journey that I had to close the door on some relationships because they weren't ready. And that's okay. That's your journey. But I need to keep moving forward. And so I hope that part of change and part of growth is also understanding that not everybody's meant to be there forever.
Absolutely.
They're there as teachers for a certain amount of time, and then you move on.
Yeah. And you've got to ask yourself why you would want to maintain a relationship with someone who would rather you hold yourself back to make them comfortable than celebrate you when you go shine. I would rather have somebody that wants to be in my life because they know, like, hell yeah, being around Angie's going to be fun. Like, we're going to have some good meals. She's going to take us on trips. Like, hell yeah, I spoil all the people around me. That's what I love doing. It's what brings me joy. It's why I work as hard as I do. But,
can I go with you? Can I go with you?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I love that. And when I get back on the road, when I get back up to New York, I'm going to have to let you know. But that's one of my favorite things to do when I'm out traveling is, I'll tell people I'm in this area and I start getting pings. We should hang out here. We should go do this. They take me on these crazy adventures. We find these really interesting restaurants and we have so much fun together. And that is why I work as hard as I do, because I want the experience. I want the memories. That's all the stuff that I'm going to be able to take with me to the end, not the actual like physical monetary stuff.
Right. It's living life. My God, to the best.
And I think the funniest thing about that too is still that there are so many stories tied to like living your life and when you get to. And I think that ties back so perfectly to what we were talking about at the very beginning when you incorporated dance into your practice and just brought a whole lot of joy there. My life coach once challenged me on this because I was going down some rabbit hole about, stressing out about not making enough money. And he's like, okay, so why did you get in business? And just keeps adding these questions until we eventually wind up and go, so what's the point of all this? What are you hoping to accomplish with this? To have enough money so that I have freedom and time to spend with the people that I love, doing things that I love, having excellent food and amazing adventures. And he goes, cool. So aren't you doing that now? Right. Okay. Yes.
Right.
you
Right.
have a point. I'm already doing this, and that was my main goal. So why am I stressing out so much about the money? Like, I've already
Mm,
got the end goal. The money will come. I love
right.
refocusing like that.
Right. And you're able to recreate yourself as you do the same thing that you're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a never-ending process.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic. So I want to circle back to that since we got back to the dancing. What made you put these videos online, and like what was the response to that?
So this was during COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously many people were in a low place.
Mm-hmm.
Making anybody laugh or smile for any reason is always good. But during COVID,
Yes.
you know, as we were laughing in the office, I was like, oh, we're laughing. This is fun. Let me just share this for my friends, on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram. This was not like a dental Instagram. This was my personal Instagram. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody's like, oh my God, that's so fun. That's so fun. And I was like, oh, that was fun. And one time we were doing it, and it was just the staff, a patient happened to walk in on us doing a dance video. And
Mm-hmm.
for a second, I was like, oh my God, so unprofessional, right? That thing, we go back to that. This is so unprofessional. And he walked in, and of course, he has a mask on, but you can see when somebody's smiling. And his
Mm-hmm.
eyes were like, oh. And then he goes, what are you guys doing? Dancing? He goes, I want to dance. And then I grabbed him and we started dancing. Um, and then from that, I realized how many people at home would just love to smile and just love to
Mm-hmm.
see what is going on out there. And I wanted to show a part of dentistry that nobody ever sees. It just
Mm-hmm.
happened. It just fell on my lap. I didn't know that this was going to happen. And I started, with their permission, I started sharing them. And I could just feel everybody who was just messaging me like, oh my God, this is so great. I love watching that. It's 30 seconds of smiling or feeling good about yourself, whatever it is. Why not?
Hell yes. I love that. And, to go back to what we talked about with suffering being a choice, I just remember working on a passage in my book recently where I came across this. There's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And if you haven't read it, highly recommend it. Go read it. Read it once a year. But at a high level, it talks about finding joy in a concentration camp, and arguably one of the worst possible
Wow.
experiences that any of us could have as human beings, right? And that just further underscores the fact that like there are little moments of joy, there are little smiles, no matter how miserable your situation is. You might have to dig for it. You might have to lean on others for support to get it. You might have to push yourself out of your comfort zone to find it, but it's there. And we can choose with some work, right, to get
Right.
out of that funk and to find our joy and our happiness again. And it ties in so brilliantly to, I'm sure everybody's heard that Marianne Williamson quote by now about when you shine your light, you give others permission to shine theirs. I always picture somebody, like a whole bunch of us standing in a room with candles.
Yeah.
Me using my candlelight to light yours makes the room brighter, and it does nothing to diminish my shine.
There you go. That's it. That is it.
We can all light each other up. We can all bring little moments of joy, even to something that on the surface doesn't seem like fun, like getting your teeth operated on. Hell yeah. Makes me want to fly to of course nobody can see the video now, but I'm like, look at these. I could probably use some help with fixing these crooked teeth.
Yeah, but I did have to pause a little bit initially because again, fear of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
To post something, I didn't want to make light of the COVID pandemic because I knew there were many
Truth.
families who were dealing with very serious issues. So, you always have to ask yourself, what is the greater good? And for
Mm-hmm.
me at that point, if someone was going to take it like, oh my God, I can't believe she's taking this period of life so lightly. I couldn't carry that burden on myself because I knew there was a greater
Yep.
purpose. So, when you try to share, have some laughs in really,
Mm-hmm.
really deep, dark spaces, it's because it's needed.
Yes.
And you do it with compassion, not because you're doing it for any other reason.
At some point, you've just got to give up this idea that you can please everybody, and you've got to embrace what's really important to you, while also realizing that no one person can do it all. It's exactly tied into that light a spark light a candle, make this room a little bit brighter. You know, Dr. Asha, Rani, and Angie aren't going to make all 8 billion people on the planet instantaneously joyful. And that's not our job either. And to put that pressure on ourselves is just, it's a recipe for like heart attack. Oh my gosh. But you can do your small part. You can brighten your little corner of the world. And if somebody takes offense to that, that's, you know, you got to let that be on them. You got to let that go. And I always ask myself, my reframe for that when somebody doesn't like me or doesn't like what I'm doing is, well, cool, I don't like you. I mean, we don't have to like each other. It doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean I wish you well. But like, if you're not my favorite person, why do I give a damn what you think about what I'm doing? I don't care.
Yeah, right. I don't
let
like
me
you.
Let me introduce you to somebody else I don't like. Maybe you'll like each other and you'll hit it off. It'll be fine.
You know, what I have found for me, you know, I haven't had too many people to my face say that I don't like you, but I'm sure there are many people who think that. And, you know, it's, oh, I don't like you. And for me, the answer is thank you. And you move forward.
Yep.
Because when you just say thank you, they don't even know what to say.
Yes.
It's like a pause.
They have no idea what to do with it.
Silence, right? And you don't even want to waste your energy to say anything back. It's just not worth the time. It is important to speak up if it's you know, something that has to be said for the greater good. Otherwise, you do you. God bless you. See you in the next lifetime, or maybe not.
Absolutely. Treat it with a touch of humor.
Right.
Treat it with a touch of humor, especially as Angie mispronouncing words. A little detachment from whatever's going to happen. I have made the joke a couple times before that one of these days I'm going to go viral because I'm going to be in a public place where, you know, a Karen situation is going down and somebody is being chewed out. And I have already planned what I'm going to do when I see that. That is, I'm going to start screeching, I love you from Barney. I love you. You love me. And trying to get everybody around me to screech it at them too. Like sometimes you can only deal with crazy with a little bit of crazy.
You're actually killing them with love. So you know what? Do that. You're killing them, but you're killing them with love.
Kill them with kindness. There we go. We're just going to shriek childhood songs about being kind at each other until everybody's confused and nobody knows what to do and nobody has the energy to rage anymore. That's the thing.
Well, you just said the key word, childhood. You know, at what point, and I don't know, you know, this is just when you grow up, at what point does becoming adult have to be boring? Like, did we forget like how to be a child? Like getting in touch with the things that you enjoyed as a child doesn't mean you're immature. It means you're living in the magic and you're finding things that used to, you know, make you smile, makes you laugh, makes you look at the world in such a beautiful way. We need to have that as adults. You know, so many parents are so focused on these mommy and me classes and gymnastics. I want to put my child in this. I want to put my child in that. And all these extracurricular activities. And then they forget, wait, well, how about you as an adult? Aren't you allowed to do these extracurricular activities? Is it just for the child?
Hell yeah.
So I think adults need to go back to connect to that inner child and bring that joy back. You don't have to be a boring adult. You can be, work and play can be one.
Absolutely. And I think when you have done the work to figure out what special thing you bring to the world, then your work becomes your play. And that's kind of like the adult version of childhood, right? I loved traveling around the country and being able to visit places as a digital nomad because I had this fresh perspective. And my first stop was in New Orleans in 2021, where there was no Mardi Gras because it was still pre-vaccine. And I had this whole big list because I'm a writer. I researched and I was like, these are all the things I have to do. These are all the listicles. I went to one place and had such a great conversation with a local person in COVID times when people were encouraged to not talk to strangers. And they were like, oh, you're new here. You need to go to this place. You need to go to that. No, forget your list. Go to these places. I'm telling you. And that sparked off 2 years of me just going to a place that someone else recommended
Yeah.
Having an interesting conversation with a stranger, asking them what they recommended. They sent me off on another adventure. I've been to llama yoga. I've been in hot air balloons. There's this place called Meow Wolf in Santa Fe. I went face first into an interdimensional dryer. You'll understand it when you go to Meow Wolf. You should go. It's fun. It's basically a giant slide concept. But
nice.
Yeah, just being brave enough to be like, yes, I'm an adult. And fun is still allowed, whatever your definition of fun is. Doesn't have to be first down a weird slide. Doesn't have to be a hot air balloon, especially if you're afraid of heights. But what do you like doing? What's fun for you? Go do more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And that's where I knew 5 years ago that something was up, when I did have free time, and I didn't know what to do. Like now that, especially having 3 kids and you're so busy, as they were getting older and I did have free time, and I was like, wait, I don't even know what to do. I was like, this is bad. Like when I don't even know what to do now that I can't make excuses anymore. You know what I mean? Something had to change.
There's always a reason not to do something. I'm fond of telling my coaching students that if you look hard enough, there will always be an excuse. So at some point, what you have to do is start looking for the reason to do something and make those strong enough, often referred to in entrepreneurship as your why. Yeah. Why is this important enough for me to focus on? Why is this important enough for me to prioritize? Yeah, absolutely. Fun. Heaven forbid you actually like doing what you get paid to do.
Right.
Oh my gosh, what a brain buster.
And if you're running a business and your staff members see you in that, that's the easiest way to keep staff members still working for you, because they're coming to work. It's contagious.
Yes.
And financially, you bring in more abundance. So in every way, you have a successful professional career when you first tap into yourself. All of that will come. In my office, I have patients who send me their family because they're like, oh my God, we want them to see you. And so when I'm so busy doing, my surgery and my dancing, all of a sudden I have more patients coming in because they're like, oh, we trust her. We connect with her. So in any career, I think, the end game of having a successful career, there's so many ways to get there.
Absolutely. And I think the best way to embrace it is exactly as you said, being 100% authentically you. Neither of us is saying that you need to start dancing tomorrow. Neither of us is saying that you need to take this show on the road and go be a digital nomad. Right. Look at the different versions of bliss and fun that each of us has found and use that as inspiration. You've got more time than you think. And also you don't have as much time as you think. So this is really, really important, guys. Can't stress this enough. Have fun.
Right.
Dear God.
This is your one lifetime. Make it count.
Absolutely. I feel like that is the perfect way, chef's kiss way to end this show. So tell us a little bit more about what you're up to, where we can find more information about you. And I have a feeling that more people are going to want to figure out how to book you for appointments now that they know a great dentist to go to.
So yes, I'm a dentist, but I also recently wrote a book. I published a book last month. It's called Who Is She? The Journey Beyond Being a Mother, Wife, and Daughter. And it's where I talk about breaking societal norms and stepping out of the box as a female. And then besides that, I do volunteer dental mission trips to the Dominican Republic. I teach implant training. So I'm up to a bunch of different things that just not just related to dentistry. Excellent. And you can find me on Instagram at Dr._Asha_Tooth Fairy. And then you'll see what I'm up to.
Excellent. I'm going to make sure they have clickable links in all of the show notes. This has been so much fun. Thank you for joining me at the end of a very long podcast recording day. This was the perfect episode to end on. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of "you can do it." Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.